And before we get to the line items on the budget, I've decided to do two things. One is that we do have public comments from this morning, and so I would like to have us all have the advantage of getting them read to us. Go ahead.
Okay. The first comment was at 10:25 by Kindwin. Thank you, Mindy, for all you do. Kindwin again, thank you, Mindy, for all you do. At 10:39, John Dresden to everyone. Is all this relevant to approving the fiscal year 23-24 budget? One reply to that from Mindy. Yes, if there are mistakes, how can we approve anything? Kathy Klesick shortly thereafter, for clarification, all of the TO funds were available to be reimbursed. Some of the categories of work I did required contributions from SETD as well. All work done related to rideshare and carpool van pool were 100% reimbursed. I did not do any work that was outside of the scope of my contract with ODOT, unless specifically directed to do so by the executive director. There was an implication made that I was working in a way that was not within the scope and resulted somehow in costing the district money above budgeted amounts. At 10:45, Kindwin to everyone. Thank you for pointing this out, Kathy. The finance manager and the current SETD board and the former executive director, Jeff Hazen, created this mess, and sadly, it seems like they are trying to put the blame on everyone else but themselves. They are not even able to answer simple questions to the budget committee that should have been easy to answer and account for. Kindwin again. Thank you for pointing this out, Kathy. The finance manager and current SETD board and former executive director Jeff Hazen created this mess, and sadly it seems like they are trying to put the blame on everyone else but themselves. They are not able to answer simple questions to budget committee that should have been easier to answer and account for. That sounded similar, but they were two different ones.
It did sound similar.
Again, at 10:53 from Kindwin to everyone. This is just so heartbreaking. It is a huge injustice that innocent employees of SETD lost their jobs, and there are still many vulnerable people in the community who are still without transportation access. This is what happens when you have people in charge who are not competent and do not care and are not transparent and who do not follow the rules and do right by the people they serve and the employees who work hard and do a good job for them. That is why it is so important to have good and honest and leaders who care and do their diligence. Last one, 11:42, John Dresden to everyone. It's entirely possible for preceding year figures to change from year to year. For example, when the budget process for the current 22-23 fiscal year was underway, the FY21 audit was not complete. This means figures included last year for FY21 were audited estimates. The FY21 audit is now done, so figures for FY21 may have been updated on this year's budget from budget form for FY23-24. Likewise, the FY22 audit is not yet complete, so figures listed on this year's form for first preceding year are unaudited estimates in the comments.
Thank you. Okay. And the other thing I thought we should do before we get to the line items, and I think you brought copies for everybody. The report of the outstanding grants, budget, special funds, and budget minutes. Excuse me, that's what the title of the email was. But it's the listing of all the amounts still due from ODOT. And we got this by email last night, so it's good for us to be able to go through it And maybe Kelly, you can take us through this. Now, I wanna make sure I understand. When we're asking for the money from ODOT, we have a deadline to ask for that money that is like a month past the end of the quarter? No, how does that work?
We have 6 weeks after the end of the quarter to do our SPR and APR reports. But as far as our reimbursements go, I believe we have 6 weeks after the end of that fiscal year, right? Is that when that shuts down?
Right, there is no set timeline that you have to request reimbursement except for at the end of the biennium. When the grant agreement expires, then you have 60 days. Otherwise, our system will not let you do a reimbursement.
Okay, I'm processing that in my brain. So a district could not bill ODOT for a whole biennium.
Yeah, we prefer not to see that.
Right. But then they have 60 days from the end of the biennium to get all that into ODOT's door.
Correct.
And then, okay, so no matter when a district bills ODOT, then what is ODOT's requirement in terms of a timeline for reimbursement?
Contractually, in the agreements, we have 30 days. This is unforeseen circumstances and unusual circumstances. So we are holding the monies until after the forensic audit is done and to see if there's any fraud or to see if we can figure out how certain items were paid. Because this gets complicated. It's kind of complicated because if they used state funds, which is STIF, to pay for federal items that they're asking now for reimbursement, basically they've already been reimbursed.
I think that helps me understand a quote I heard before. So then let me ask you on this list, the first 3 items were all invoiced, 2 of them in 22, 1 in February of 23, and they've all been paid by ODOT to the district. So those are zeroed out. The next 3 items were invoiced to ODOT in December of 22.
So this report, the date that is on there, that is the invoice, that it shows us the invoice date is the date, the last day of that quarter. So those are for that quarter.
Okay, so, and you say the due date is March. These were all December and the 3 due dates are in March. What does the due date mean?
The due date would be 30 days after the day that it was submitted to ODOT. The invoice date is the date, the end of the quarter.
So
That's tracking to know what quarter.
So quarter 2 of the fiscal year would be September to December,
October to December.
October, December, thank you. So what this doesn't tell me is when did the actual invoice go to ODOT? Because if it went to ODOT on 12/31 or even
It would have went to ODOT 30 days prior to the due date. So 2/22.
The due date,
30 days prior to the due date.
so it would be
but that's more than 6, okay, I see what you're saying.
February 22, 2020.
So then I've got the question, if this was all sent to ODOT in February and ODOT had 30 days to pay it to the district, that was in March. That would have been before ODOT before there was any problems. So why, Arla, is ODOT holding those funds?
I can only speak to the 5311 funds, the 158,525. The Innovative Mobility Grant is outside of my purview, and so is the bike grant. But the 5311 funds, which are rural funds, we had to wait until FTA got us those funds before they released those to us. They were behind as well. And while we're holding that, just about ready to send it out to be reimbursed is when I heard on April 18th that the district was in trouble and was gonna stop service. So we started holding all the funds.
Okay. So I'm still confused on this in terms of timing. But basically, if you add this all up, what would I say that number was? 478,000.
$487,122.48.
487,000. So if the these are monies that we know are owed to the district by ODOT. No matter what the outcome of the forensic audit is, these are monies expended by the district, which are owed to the district.
Technically,
So-
yes.
More, okay, so am I incorrect in assuming there's only a couple of outcomes? One being that this is an account receivable and the district gets it. Two being that ODOT decides to retain it and post it to the outstanding balance of the loan.
Number two
No.
cannot happen.
Number two cannot happen. All right,
If they can go back and show how these purchases were paid for, which could be very difficult to do because it's all commingled funds. If they could show that these were paid with federal funds set aside to pay these bills, we can then release it. If it was paid with STIF formula funds, we cannot.
okay. I would like to have that in the minutes verbatim. Because that's the only way I'm gonna understand it. Okay. Kelly, am I missing anything in what my questions were? Okay. And just one more thing. I know we're in the current year. Are we still expending funds that we are going to look for reimbursement from ODOT?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have questions? Thank you, Pamela.
Okay, I think I've asked this 3 times, but I'll keep asking it. What do we need to show ODOT? We're going okay. I think if I understand correctly, the forensic audit has not started yet, you just,
Correct.
okay, so we were told month and a half, sort of.
It was hard to find a CPA to do that. It is a forensic auditor to do it.
Okay, so then we're still in abeyance. So my question is always, what do we have to do? Do we have to wait to this forensic audit, which seems a little unfair to the district?
No, and Kelly's been burdened, with trying to get the budget done, all these other things. If she can go in and show where those funds came from, that she used to pay these items she's asking for reimbursement, and and we can show that it wasn't STIF funds, we can then reimburse even before the forensic audit, from what I understand.
So Kelly has to do that?
The finance person,
Well, yeah, what, you know, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that the auditors were going to do that.
They're going to look at it, but I think what I'm understanding is if Kelly could proactively do that before the auditors come in and submit that to ODOT, ODOT would at least consider paying us some of the money they owe us. Am I
yes.
okay?
But probably, I'll ask it anyway. How do you go about doing something like that?
It's not easy.
So do you look at the,
I'll go back and look at our funding sources at that time, our balances at that time, what we paid at that time. Just kind of, I just have to go and just look back through everything, take the time to go and look back through what we have in funding and, what we were paying and where the funds were coming from.
it's a huge task, do you have help?
Me, myself, and I. Paul will help me.
We're working on it together. It's just been a few days that Arla let us know that if we could give evidence that STIF funds were not used to pay those bills, that we could get reimbursement. But we have honestly spent the last few days preparing for this meeting, for a special board meeting we had before this meeting, and other things. After this meeting is done, then that becomes our next top priority.
This is not a reprimand, it's just, and I misunderstood, I thought that ODOT was doing what Kelly is burdened with.
We don't have access to AccuFund to go in there and try to figure that out. And the auditors aren't really tasked to figure the reimbursements out. They're tasked with a bigger project than that,
And the bigger project is,
the forensic audit. Which isn't trying to figure out if this reimbursement could be paid or not. Or the reimbursements that we're holding can be paid or not, is to see if there's any fraud or any other items that don't look right in the account.
is commingling considered fraud?
I think that's a legal question.
Yes, I'm not an
It's a legal
attorney
question. Okay,
Okay,
and I don't want to overstep.
okay,
thank you, Arla.
thank you.
They're looking at the bigger picture of what was the process of all this.
Well, just keep on asking.
Thank you. Paul,
All right, so I'm looking at the special fund resource and requirements. on
we're
page
not
7.
quite there yet.
No, this is directly to this question.
Oh,
about
thank you.
investment. Okay. Now, go back to prior years, I'm looking at the STIF fund where it says, the county, the transit district's gonna spend $200K on district operations. And that's refundable money. How does ODOT actually know what district operations is? I mean, where does that, what is that? I mean, that's just a broad category. I mean, I could consider,
District
bulk
operations
salaries, district
is
operations.
pretty much everything to operate the district.
I mean, how does the district know, how does ODOT know what we spent on operations?
Yeah, I mean, so my understanding is ODOT says to get the money that we haven't gotten yet. We have to show that it was FCA money, but all the money was dumped into like a checking account, commingled. How do you go back and do that?
So,
I mean, we were just gonna write off this whole
these
foreign
are things that we can all be concerned about. But given that we don't know how they look at things or what has happened, we can't make suppositions. And so I think I don't think anybody really has answers here. How ODOT operates and how they determine their information is the way ODOT operates it. And they're gonna look at what was reported before, and they're gonna look at what do they see now, I'm sure. So it's, I don't think there's anything that, that affects the future budget that we're gonna be talking about. But it certainly shows our concern for what is happening today. That didn't answer your question,
Not really, but that's okay.
so.
Go ahead.
But Paul, is there anything you wanna add to that?
No, I thought your question was, how does ODOT know in a normal circumstance how to reimburse us for what we spent that they owe us for? Was that not your question?
Well, we've been getting reimbursements from ODOT in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these numbers and, you know, like, and I'm assuming that all these, we would send reimbursements into ODOT already for all this money. So if we send it in for reimbursements, there must have been a tag on there showing how we spent that money. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't understand if we already showed ODOT how we spent that money
Because they now
and it
have
was
costs.
reimbursable, why do we have to go back and show them again?
We don't get the information on what bucket of money that was paid with.
You know,
And that's-
Has that been a requirement in the past?
Pardon me?
Has that been a requirement in the past?
No, but we're looking at a forensics audit now, and since we are looking at that, it would be not a good item if we went ahead and paid these reimbursements, knowing there could be an issue there. We have to follow, our accounting rules, and since when an agency has an issue, we start requiring more from them to show us how they're paying things. FTA is not happy right now, so that puts our funding in jeopardy as well. So they're asking us to do more to check into these reimbursements that have not been paid yet, that we normally do.
Okay.
I'm trying to.
I understand the answer.
Deanna,
So if you mentioned something about ODOT not having access to the AccuFund. So then what information is the audit, the forensic audit going on?
They're gonna ask for, I saw a list the other day, and it's gonna be a pretty in-depth list.
So they're going to request information from us that we have to submit.
Correct.
Got it. It's not like they come in and they just look at everything.
No, with all technology now, they can do that from off-site.
Yeah,
So I don't know if they're even gonna come on-site to do that at all.
got it. I guess I've watched too much television. It felt a little bit like, okay, the FBI is gonna come in and, but no.
Once
it's-
upon a
it's-
time, they used
they
to
would
come in
request.
Oh,
and
yeah.
physically touch everything.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
can just scan it all in and upload it online on a website or a cloud base.
So we still have to provide
Yes.
everything that's required. Thank you.
They'll send me a big long list of all the stuff that they want. Right?
right. Okay. So we're gonna dive into, we're on page 4, the requirements summary. So Paul and Kelly, you get to walk us through this.
All right. All right, salary and wages. This was not figured looking at previous years, not figured on any historical data. This $1.3 million was figured based on the positions that we called back, the 6 drivers, the mechanic, et cetera, at 40 hours a week, and right now we're paying 30 hours a week. At 40 hours a week over the upcoming year. And this is exactly what we feel that the wages will be. Honestly, there may be $100,000 cushion there. But this is actually figured on current wages for the positions that are currently working. At this point, we don't have any plans to add FTEs or add service.
Except that that FTE number should be 15,
With the hire of a director.
right?
Yes.
And I thought we talked about earlier that that was going to be put into this budget.
Yes.
The 1.3 million includes the director.
Okay, okay.
So that number on line 5 would change to 15.
So this budget then, the salaries and wages, presupposes that there will be no increase in the services being rendered today.
That's correct.
Questions, anybody?
Well, in my notes, I have that this draft is $617,000 higher, is that right? From the previous draft we had,
That's possible.
okay, and why is that?
Well, based on our last meeting, we went over all of these lines and made adjustments that the committee had requested
Okay,
and made adjustments based on more current information that we had to bring back to the committee. I would hope it's different this time, otherwise we wouldn't have any reason to come back.
okay,
So this is new and improved. Payroll expenses, would you do that one? This is taxes. And that's just based on a rate, based on our salary and wages. Employee benefits, self-explanatory, that's medical.
General life insurance.
For a total personnel services of 1.817 million. We just take what it costs per each employee and multiply it by the number of employees, and this is what we come up with.
And when we talk about employee benefits, people can get health insurance, they can get life insurance, they can get other things. For some of the things they get, do they have to pay a portion of it themselves?
If it's just them covered on the insurance and the dental, the district pays for it. If they have family members, spouse or children, then they pay that. Life insurance is completely paid by the district, and short-term and long-term disability is completely paid by the district.
Okay. If they had to pay something themselves, that's taken out of their payroll, it's a payroll deduction, and it's then paid by the district along with all the rest of the premium?
Yes.
Okay. Debbie?
Does that include any retirement? Do they get retirement benefits?
Yes, that's all.
So that's in there too.
All right.
So like a 401k?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay,
Good on personnel services?
I think so.
Right, just jump in.
You just move right along, I'll answer questions along the way.
Provider services refers to volunteers, reimbursement volunteers that used to provide veterans rides. And we don't have any volunteers right now. We don't look at expanding that program. So the budget there is 0.
So we're not doing veterans rides at all?
Not per se. We have other ways we move veterans, but not through this particular program.
I was just gonna add that the volunteers are still volunteering on their own.
That's true, they
And
are.
they are liable themselves because they're not covered through the, and it's, we have two. And I
Right,
happen to know what they're doing and the rights that they have secured previous to the changes, they are still committed to those rights, providing those rights.
So that's admirable.
Pamela,
Oops, no,
okay,
sorry.
Deanna,
So are we not reimbursing the mileage or anything?
We don't have a budget for that, we haven't budgeted for that, so no.
For the vet rides.
For the vet rights, so we're going to suspend veteran rights for the next fiscal year?
That's our plan.
looks like there's no
Basically-
plan for it.
And, isn't it nice to know that those rights are still happening, but it's outside of the purview of
Yeah.
SETD, which was kind of part of the plan in a way, for this program, because it was to try to establish relationships, veterans to veterans. So it's kind of has made, because of that component, it's been able to be sustained with the drivers that are continuing to drive.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say something before we go too much further here. We talked about this at the last committee meeting. It's still our intention, sometime between the end of the first quarter and end of the second quarter, to be able to develop a supplemental budget for the remainder of the year, because frankly, we don't have experience with the way that we're operating right now to know what the expenses are gonna be every month. And we absolutely refuse to take an unnecessary risk at this point. So we're being very cautious. That's why I say that the plan is that we won't add service this year. However, if we're able to manage our funds, to control our cash flow in an effective way, and it turns out that it's not gonna cost us as much each month as we had budgeted, then we may well stand up some other services that we are now not planning to do. It could be a fixed route, it could be additional ADA driver, it could be reimbursement for veterans' rides. But I think that we would be foolish to try and do these things out of the gate and then find out again we couldn't afford it. Okay,
Okay,
all right, audit. This is far higher than it was in previous years, primarily because of the situation that we're in, the fact that we're behind on annual audits. I don't know if there are any other factors into this.
The auditor said that it would be $25,000 to do the initial audit and up to $5,000 to do the individual audit. So that's,
Part of that is just inflationary. Their fees have gone up.
and how many audits are we behind? For the current year,
22 fiscal year,
for the 22-23 fiscal year.
21-22
Oh.
fiscal year.
Okay, and when do we do the audit for the 22-23 fiscal year?
Normally, he would come out in September, October and start that.
Okay, so does this $30,000 cover what we're behind for the 21-22 year, as well as what we're gonna have to pay for the 22-23 year?
It is just the 23-24 year. It's just for our next, or for our 20, it's what we will pay for our audit for the fiscal year 23, ending fiscal year 23.
This covers it.
This covers our
Right,
audit.
but what about what we have to pay for the other audit, the audit a year ago that has not happened yet?
The audit that needs to be finished, that's not in that.
But we had paid part of
Doesn't
that.
We paid part of that. We paid 14,000.
Yeah, I
We
can see
owe
that.
probably, well, at this moment, we don't owe anything because he hasn't finished our audit. When he finishes our audit, we'll probably owe about another 10,000.
So that means that this $30,000 for audits is short by $10,000.
Technically, yes.
It could be, these are just estimates.
Well, I think we know the cost of these pretty good. So, I'm concerned that we're $10,000 off there.
Okay. Well, we'll just fix that then.
Okay.
Advertising. Basically, we've indicated that's for ads for employment openings,
Yes.
$2,000.
So as we're looking for an executive director, is that added in here or somewhere else? Because ODOT starts at 5,000, or SDOA starts at 5.
That would be in the professional services.
The ads would be,
The ads, we did any advertising, like this is like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all of those kinds of things. SDAO would be a professional service.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a headhunter?
Thank you.
Bank fees. What's going on, history for that is kind of unpredictable. I don't know if that would be overdrafts or what would it be.
Bank fees was,
Well, for our Square sales, which is our iPad sales at the front counter,
the fees for that, we get fees from the bank for accounts, and then Token Transit is the app that's used to purchase bus tickets from your phone.
So it's
Okay.
token transit under bank fees or a different line?
It's bank fees, it's like bank and merchant fees that roll up together.
Okay.
buildings, grounds and maintenance. That's janitorial, that's plumbing, that's any work that's done by our mechanic on facilities. And I don't know if outside contractors still in there, if we have to call a plumber and that sort of thing.
That goes in there, our shelter cleaning goes in there, our garbage service, tree trimming.
Okay.
And just so the committee knows, we're working with the people who maintain the landscaping at the transit center here. We're not very happy with the service that we've been receiving. Neither Mary nor I can get them to call us back. The only contract that I could find expired in 2013. And so they're either gonna have to step up their game or we'll go out for another bid to get another landscape. Because we've been paying these guys $5,000 a year for 11 or 12 years. And our place doesn't reflect the spirit of those who work here.
Is that contract automatically renewing?
No, I don't think we haven't been able to find a contract that's in force. I think that they've just been coming here so long that they keep coming here and keep sending us a bill.
Well, watch for them, catch it.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure they even come here. I know they send us a bill.
I've seen them a few times.
Yeah, they really transfer.
We're looking into that, and we're
Okay.
looking to the outfit that takes care of our shop uniforms and rags. They've been charging us the same thing every week. When we had 4 mechanics and now we got 1, they're still charging us the same thing every week. So, it just requires a little oversight. We're trying to put that in place now,
and do they get new uniforms every year or not?
No, this was for coveralls for the mechanics that are working on the buses.
The laundry service.
Yeah, it's all rentals, rental coveralls, rental rags.
They
But-
take them and clean them and they bring us 5 rags and we take 5 rags. They bring us 5 clean ones and take 5 clean ones.
Yeah, but they don't count them. They charge us, I think it's 50 of one kind of rag and 100 of another every week. So
That's
we're renting them whether they're in our
I'm
shop
watching that.
or in their washing machine or on their shelf. So especially these days, it doesn't make much sense to continue to do that.
obviously.
So that is included in line 12, building grounds and maintenance, like the uniforms and,
I don't know, the uniforms and that are not in there, I'm
No,
sorry,
they're
I
down
kind of
below. That's
I
line
got
36.
off on a tangent
uniforms,
because
yes.
Right.
All right,
I'm
thank you.
excited about saving money, that's why. Building lease, was primarily our Seaside office, and, we contacted them this week, let them know we're moving out.
Little upset about that. Is there some way to take some money somewhere else? 100 here, 100 there?
Except that Pamela, you have to assume that if you've got if you've got an office there, you have a person there. And I think part of this is we can't afford a person there. How much was it used?
There was someone that was there 5 days a week, full time. But as far as the income derived from the office, didn't cover its expenses.
I can't hear you.
The income that came from the office in Seaside didn't cover the expenses for
And
the
I-
office
yes,
alone.
I'm not sure I would have expected that, but I would have expected to count the number of people coming in for questions, customer service, to see how well utilized it is in that geographical area. That is what would tell me whether or not it's effective to have that office there. Because you could have the same 5 people coming in every week to buy tickets, bus tickets, but if you have nobody else, then you're really not providing the amount of customer service that you might be paying for.
It was very, very minimal traffic in the office.
This is a suggestion off the wall. Is there a possibility of selling tickets at Seaside Library?
Oh, God, no.
Why not?
I would never ask the library. First of all, the library is a city function, but I would not ask at the library. I would start, if I was gonna ask somebody to sell tickets in Seaside, I would find a merchant who's willing to do that.
Well, TriMet used to do it at supermarkets.
That would be a merchant.
That's a merchant. That's
Sorry,
not a
Charles, I
trade.
do
just-
see you there.
So if there a
This- This is a change that has been discussed for months among the leadership team here. And in as much as we're trying to control expenses at this point, I don't think that the income down there covered half of the actual expenses. And it's not just building, there's telephone, there was internet,
Power,
yeah,
gas.
our share of the utilities.
Probably insurance.
So, it's
A
a
lot
move
more
that,
than $2,000,
it's a move that would have happened
or whatever.
probably even if we hadn't been in this particular fix.
So how will it be for Sunset or Seaside to handle tickets? Where do they go now? They wanted to.
Well, we have some electronic options we didn't used to have. We'll always give our bus pass riders a free ride to the transit center to pick up their tickets. So it's not like they're excluded from being able to take care of business anymore. It's just a little less convenient.
So will there be some sort of announcement, what you can do now that it's closed?
Well, we have a website, and of course, we're in the middle of things right now, but everything is, we attempt to keep everything on the website current. And I imagine as we go into the new year, we'll probably have to put out a press release that lets everybody know of all the major changes that have occurred.
And it could be simple enough to have a poster in the window of that office so that if somebody walks up, there's another occupant in that office space.
Yes.
And I think we don't want to have them burdened with people walking in saying, how do I get my tickets? What do I do? Et cetera, et cetera. And they're not always open either. So a poster right there, giving some people some direction, I think would be a very nice touch.
There is one, I've received a couple of phone calls already, so
Great,
there's something there.
great. Okay,
Okay. Computer Information Technology Services. We're not really planning any upgrades or server replacements or anything going forward. This is primarily for our contract with iFocus, which is $56,000 just to have that contract. They maintain our data backup, if I'm not mistaken, and our network integrity, and they're here to take care of our conference room needs if the Zoom system isn't working for us and that sort of thing. And then
Do they bill you per computer at all for any kind of service?
We have licensing, licensing.
So, given that you're gonna have fewer people working, are you gonna let some licenses lapse?
There will only be one, two, I think. Our
Yeah.
TL license would go, whatever we have in there, and then
there are a couple that we
But
could
nothing-
reduce.
yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
unfortunately, we need to have a minimum
Right.
admin staffing in order to support the drivers we have out there and the maintenance that needs to be done, and that's where most of the computers are
Okay.
deployed. Any questions on computer?
Oh, Deanna,
Yes, so then on computer information technology services, iFocus does, like the tablets that are on the buses, is that it? Or what is it that they provide?
Mostly desktops and laptops.
Oh.
They maintain the licenses for the Microsoft Office suite that we have on those and other software that's run to maintain connectivity with the network. They manage our servers, hardware and software, the servers. I don't know if they're involved in internet or not, or if that's, are they?
They help us if our internet is down, or we're having problems with our internet, they help us. With the Zoom,
And they're on call if there's something that we need done. For example, we installed we purchased a printer recently. And because we have a network and because there's security involved, they came out and hooked that printer up and did the addressing and whatever settings were necessary to keep that data safe. So it's it's a function that we've tried several different ways in the years that I've been associated here. And I can tell you that it's running as smoothly now as it ever has.
So then Angel Tracks is the one that does our tablets? The video, it says video on buses and bus tracking.
Angel Tracks is the company that manages our video on our cameras and video recording on the buses.
Cameras.
Yeah. So we have about 7 cameras on each bus, and whenever the bus is running, they're recording what's going on. They also manage the data between the buses and their server so that we can actually look at the bus. We can actually see the cameras on the bus while the bus is in service. If there's a safety issue or we're monitoring some kinds of behaviors out there.
Good.
and do they come under this line or under a different line?
Angel Tracks.
Angel Tracks is on this line?
Yeah, I was looking at the chart of accounts
Chart of accounts.
definitions.
Jeez, how wonderful that is.
It is, and that's where I saw it. So would internet service be included on this line as well?
Internet's under utility.
Yeah, internet is
yeah.
provided by our phone company.
Internet,
Now,
it's a little difficult hearing you.
we had internet service at the Seaside office, but that was handled through Comcast, Spectrum, Charter, and that's, but the internet here and at Ops is provided by Wave, which is now Profound or Astound or
It's
whatever, Astound, which is our phone system. So they provide the internet to this location, and then there's a phone line from here to operations for their internet service. And that's all under our phones, not,
Under 35.
yeah. not under this.
So then maybe we should add that to the definitions, under utilities, internet and phone. Thank you.
Under 35.
Yeah, 35, telecommunications,
Under 35.
that's old school for phones.
Yeah, telecommunication and internet.
Okay.
Okay, where were we? We're going to
We're on
conferences?
line 15, yes.
Okay.
I want to say one more thing, we do have cameras here too that are taken
Oh,
care of,
yes.
yeah, towards our security here.
That's
Yes,
true.
so, which is really important.
Is there a buzzer for the front
No,
person?
Okay, line 15.
soon.
Okay, conferences, training conferences, travel for staff and board members. Staff doesn't have any trips, any travel planned this year, which is unfortunate because there are some important SDAO, OTC, OTA stuff. But, you know, when we've laid 30 people off, it would be a bad optic for them to see us taking a trip. And so primarily for that reason, at this time, we don't have any trips planned.
Can you get scholarships from management, apply for
They
scholarships?
can, SBAOs, anything like LOC, you can get scholarships.
There are scholarships available, first come, first serve. Still, that doesn't change the optic.
It usually, any of the scholarships that I've gotten have, just been the conference fee, not the getting you there, the travel piece of it.
Right, right. With the potential hiring of a new director, if that person comes from out of the state, I think we do have to be aware that they probably need to be going to some sort of training to get up to speed with a lot of things that are different in Oregon than they are in other places in the country. So I could see the potential for that amount to increase, but I'm fine with it staying at 5,000 for right now.
So that 5,000 would include moving expenses for a new
Oh, no, that's not what I'm talking about.
Then what do you mean?
I'm talking about if somebody comes new, as a new director, they're gonna need some sort of training to get up to speed to the way things work in Oregon and that kind of stuff. And I mean, there's training through SDAO, I'm sure that there's gonna be training that they can get from ODOT, that kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
And I would submit that most of the training is available, especially from those organizations, is available online. But you can't overlook the value of somebody
Yes.
new to the area being able to attend a professional conference with contemporaries from the region. I think that's where the real education would come.
Absolutely.
Drug and alcohol testing, background checks, that has to do, of course, with not only new hires, but the cost to participate in the mandatory random drug testing pool that our positions require. Dues and subscriptions. This is one of the main reasons that we put together this
Yes.
definition, because that seems really high for dues and subscriptions. But as we mentioned a little bit earlier, there are some large items in there that we pay every year, Swiftly and SDAO. So this is just something that we have to have in order to do these parts of the business. And I think it's a reasonable amount.
And you said that may also include other chambers of commerce on different cities, not just Cannon Beach?
Yes.
IGA dues and fees. IGA, of course, is a intergovernmental agreement. And the one that we're budgeting for here is our agreement with the Northwest Oregon Transit Alliance, WADA.
Yeah.
Each of the partners pays $3,000 a quarter to support that organization.
What do they do?
They're responsible for our connector route, of which our Portland run was a link. which are buses to Cannon Beach link up with Tillamook. It provides transportation from the valley to the coast. It's an outreach for the 5 transit agencies. It's a platform on which they can collaborate on electronic fares or fare structures in order to try and get regional affordability of fares. What else? Advertising. They were instrumental in getting our website up, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So,
May I add a little bit to that?
yes.
That ODOT would love to see another alliance, just like the Nolado Alliance. There are 5 transit agencies, some are county agencies, some are transit districts or special transportation districts, all working together basically as one with an intergovernmental agreement that took years to get together because all the different attorneys, but we have never seen transit agencies work together so smoothly as these 5 transit agencies do. And we would love to see more of it in the state. And they do, you know, they're well known across the country.
Thank you.
So, does that organization then, they have like an executive director and staff? Cause I'm figuring if 5 agencies are paying $4,000 a quarter, that's $80,000 total going into that organization. Was it 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, how can I say this? It's a separate agency for whom Tillamook is the fiscal agent.
Got it.
And or I should say was the fiscal agent.
Still is.
And Doug Pilot was the responsible party for a long time for the alliance, and now with his passing, Cinda from Lincoln County has taken that over. But I believe that the board for Tillamook makes the decisions for Nowata, or
Yes.
approves
Yes.
Nowata, governs Nowata.
Got it. Thank you.
Computer, furniture, and small tools. I don't know why that says computer. You do computers out of there?
That must be hardware.
Yeah, I believe it is.
When Jeff did this last year, he wanted the purchase of computers to go into that, and so that's why it's,
Separated from the maintenance.
yes.
Okay.
Our program, so it's the
Makes sense.
actual computer itself, not everything that makes it usable for us.
Right.
So it just, I mean, so wouldn't it be more descriptive? And correct me if I'm wrong, computer purchases rather than including furniture and tools.
I have a feeling that this does include furniture and small tools,
It does.
Oh, it does.
that they're lumped together.
And then they do all fall under the category of small purchases. Tools might be for the shop or for an office. Furniture we haven't bought for a long time, but that's where it would go.
Desks or chairs, but
So, and we don't have any plans. Our computers have all been fairly recently updated. So we don't have plans to buy any more computers. So $7,500 I think is adequate there.
This made me think of a question that's out of the purview of the budget committee, but does the district have an inventory system for all of its computers, furniture, and small tools?
No,
we did. John was there.
Yeah. At this point, what we're required to report on as far as assets go is vehicles and equipment. And equipment is generally those items which are over $50,000.
Two small assets though that walk out the door.
That's true, that's true. The answer is no.
Okay.
Okay. Equipment lease,
Can I say one more thing?
yes.
iFocus does.
I say iFocus knows what computers we
Yeah,
have,
they have a serial
Yeah,
numbers,
that
they
would
have
make
them,
sense.
they have them all listed, because
because they
they
have
call
to have
my
access.
number, they
Yeah.
clearly say, oh, are you the I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they do.
They have that,
That includes laptops.
yes.
The answer is somewhat yes. All right. Equipment lease. Oh, that's our copiers.
Oh, that's right, I remember that.
Last year we had one on there, this year we have two because the one that was moved out to Warrenton, it's not at the end of its useful life yet, so we're paying a lease on that as well. Outreach,
Mary, do you want me?
No,
Outreach is.
I'm not doing minutes, no. But this is a kind of general of all outreach that we do, which used to take more printing, we've kind of honed that down quite a bit. It would be the postings, the advertising that we might pay for things that we're celebrating, like employee appreciation, when we join in with the CCA for the event, the Homeless Connect. That's an event that we participate in. Sometimes we pay for ads for that, sometimes we don't, but it just kind of depends. Mostly, it's for things we put in the paper, things that we actually pay for.
And translation services go in there?
So we do translation, is that what you put translation services?
That's what you have down here.
Yeah.
Because it's part of.
Yeah.
Anything outreach wise, you know, if we're putting something out.
Right,
Which
which
is
is,
doing English and Spanish.
if you'll notice on our Facebook page, that and on our webpage, that all postings are in Spanish and English. And I was using Google, and I have used Google the last couple of times because we were frozen. And that's usually per item about $100 to $140. I've had a document be $240 for that translation service. It's very expensive, but
So you maintain the social media, or do we pay for somebody to maintain social media?
we don't pay anybody, yeah.
So you do it?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And there's kind of, I would just like to say that we've slowed down quite a bit in the last year or two, just because of the cost.
Still seems high though, $10,000.
you know, if I can speak to that, we have often budgeted for outreach. And we haven't used that budget for outreach, it's been used for other things. And I know that Mary has some very good ideas that she has not had an opportunity to pursue. And I think at this time, when the public's got their eye on us, that I think it would be good to have an outreach strategy, you know, so that we can do whatever is necessary to talk to the public, to let them know what we're doing, to let them know we're still here, and when the time comes to get them back on the buses. So I hope that we can utilize some of that to better our position.
So if we were to tell businesses or explain that the Seaside Transit Office is gonna be closed and what to do, that would be considered outreach.
Yeah.
So all of those costs would come from it, oh, okay.
One of the things that we would, has kind of subdued it, is that we were hiring somebody to do that marketing that we did do. And so that pushed things back quite a bit, waiting for that to happen, and it did not happen. So we would say, we've been on hold. We can do a lot better.
Employee recognition, you know, I've become aware recently of what a stress this has been on the employees that are still here. On the mechanic that's working by himself in the garage out there and trying to do bus repair and facilities maintenance and pick up the trash at the shelters and all the other things that he has to do. And our staff that's in paratransit that's having to do, taking the calls and doing the dispatch and rearranging calls and doing callbacks where we used to have 3 or 4 people that would do that. And these people they're working hard and they're getting burnt out. And so Jennifer and I were speaking the other day, and it's our intention to do some small things with them, maybe have some small barbecues and have some time with them to help them regenerate, re-energize, to let them know, how important they are, to give them a little diversion from the things that they're involved in. The worst thing that could happen now is that one of them decides that this is too tough, I'm gonna go someplace else. Because, we really rely on them, we don't have any depth. So, employee recognition is not just a pretty thing to provide facts with. This is real, keep our employees
Retention.
satisfied. Exactly. Election fees is 0. Fuel is such an unknown. Scott Smith, who's our old maintenance supervisor, is traveling through the Midwest right now, and he's paying less than $3.50 a gallon for diesel, while we're paying $4.20 or $4.10 or something out here. Prices are still volatile. This is our best guess based on the service that we're providing right now.
And how many buses are running?
We have two ADA buses out, some days 3, and 1 fixed route bus at any time. So it isn't necessarily how many buses, it's how many miles.
Okay.
And the fixed route that we're running is many more miles than it used to be because we've added in Emerald Heights and Cannon Beach. So Jennifer and Kelly have done all the math to come up with that best. We know the miles, we're guessing at the cost.
Thank you.
Insurance. We need a little help on this because we did go up a bit on that. Was that a committee
Insurance.
recommendation?
I went up a little bit on the insurance because we still have insurance to pay. And we will end up over budget on insurance, so that was why I went up from before. But that's like our vehicle insurance, our property insurance, so like our bus fleet, our cyber insurance, liability, all of our. And we might be able to get maybe a little bit of a break on the buses that are sitting, but they still have to be insured. So we can't like not insure them, so we're still gonna be out, paying out insurance funds. I don't know what that'll look like because we still have to have them insured. It's not like your personal car that you can just turn it off and turn it on. We have to have insurance.
Like liability and insurance.
Yeah, so I don't know. what
We're still
that's gonna
looking
look like
into that. If the bus is on district policy,
Yeah.
district property, and
Yeah.
somebody comes through the fence, or a homeless person gets hurt climbing into one at night, or there's a fire, there's a whole lot of things that could still
Oh, yeah.
risk the district.
And ODOT requires it because it is based, we're for security and just.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that last
Yeah.
time. Okay,
All right, legal ads,
Those are our budget ads, our budget meeting ads.
okay. Legal counsel, we do have somebody on retention.
And I increased that per the committee's suggestion. Thank you. So in case that's needed.
Uninsured loss is to cover our deductible. Meeting expenses have been drastically reduced. And thanks to everybody who's providing the buffet at each of our meetings, that's very nice. Office supplies, pretty self-explanatory, down from previous years. Payroll processing fee is only on here because the second preceding year has a figure that hasn't fallen off yet. Printing. What did you say for printing?
Copier service contract and for copy fees. And anything else like our bus passes. Laser quick prints those, so that goes.
so you just said something that's confusing to me. Equipment lease is for the copiers, but you just said that copier contracts.
Service contract. It's different. They come in and service and we have to pay them per copy.
So the service isn't included in the lease. Okay.
The- I'm sorry, did you say that the service was per copy?
No, we pay, it's a service contract for them to service our copier and provide our toner. And then we pay a per copy fee.
So they're two separate
Within the same company, but two separate charges, yes. And then we pay a different company to lease the copier itself.
So just kind of to go back to line 20, equipment lease, you said that one of the copiers has reached the end of its usable life.
It hasn't.
It has not, but it's not.
It's not here, so we, every couple of years, get a new copy machine here,
Right.
and the old one goes to Warrenton. So that old one that went to Warrenton still has usable life left, so we're still on the lease for that.
Okay, they don't do a convertible lease that at some point in it, you can just buy out the copier and only have a service contract?
Not that was offered to me at this point.
And I don't think it's a buyout, I think it expires at some point, and then we just pay as you go on that one.
Okay. I'm sorry, so we're down to,
Can I interrupt too?
oh yeah,
I'm so sorry. Meeting expenses, you got 0. So I'm not ever going to purchase coffee or anything. Which
Is that where we're
Creamer?
charging that?
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's a good.
I already did.
That's right, this is.
Well, this is for next year, next year you can't purchase anything.
Oh, well, okay. I mean, no, but we really, that's,
I think we can find a way to
yeah, it is,
cover
that seems,
coffee.
yeah,
Yeah,
seems a little lean.
It is,
So,
all right.
1,000 maybe. 500 maybe, yeah.
500.
All right, 500, yes.
500. So we're
That's fine.
writing on item 29,
Yeah.
500.
Correct.
Thank you. Oh, that's better.
I'm glad you
I
asked the
have
question. Okay, so then we're down to line 33.
Professional services. HR answers, interim director, finance officer assistant. So what we have going here is, I lost my place. HR answers we talked about earlier, that's a consulting situation. Interim director is me or whoever fills in until we get a permanent director. And the finance officer assistant is, it's been recommended that we enter into an IGA with the fellow who runs Columbia, yeah, what is it? The
CC Ryder.
CC Ryder service out of Columbia County. And he happens to be on the meeting today, John Dreesen. He worked for the county as their finance person for quite a while, and they went through a couple of transportation people. And again, it's a county department, they're not a district. And John worked with those people who were responsible for transportation, and when the last one left, John was there's John. Hello, John, welcome. John was in a position to take over their transportation there, and he's done a great job, and he's been generous enough to share his finance expertise with us. And we have talked about generating an intergovernmental agreement for him to spend a certain number of hours with us each week for the next 90 to 180 days to share some of his knowledge and experience with Kelly and help her take her skills to the next level. A helping hand, which is more appreciated than I can express here today, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just 50,000 enough.
I don't know, 50,000 enough, John?
When John and I discussed it, he said.
Well, that's for the county, if not for me. So, my answers would be different.
There is a rate that the county has, a burden rate for him, and we'll pay that rate on an hourly basis to have him here. Alright.
Is there a contract for HR answers? Is that,
I think it's a,
or is it per question, or how is it per?
It's probably a subscription fee.
that's not anything that ODOT
No, it's
participates
like
in.
a, yeah, it's like a subscription or an annual fee to be like a part of their.
So it doesn't, no matter the amount of time you spend with them.
There's
Right.
extra on top of it, so we paid more to HR Answers this last year because we had employee issues. So they provide so much service, we'll say, to us for X amount of dollars, and then anything above and beyond, like your general questions, anything that they have to help additionally with is additional fees.
They also have training that they offer that you do have to pay for
Yeah,
as well.
and that goes under training.
Thank you.
And then the translation is out here, and the professional services. Translation.
Translation
outreach?
under
You said outreach.
outreach.
It's under outreach.
Okay.
Yeah, translation is under outreach.
So professional services. Yes, you told us what that was. Okay.
Taxes, license fees and interest, I think we've already discussed that one. Telecommunication is phone and internet. Phone service is $16,000 a year, and internet is, I think, $250 to $300 a month.
So our phones would go in there as well, yeah, obviously,
Yes.
so phones have.
Uniforms, we've talked about a little bit. We've taken it way down from what it's been in years past. I'm still working with that vendor to make sure that, we're getting what we need and only paying for what we need. Utilities, we don't have much control over that, although Mary keeps turning my light out whenever I leave my office, and I appreciate that. And I don't know if there's been an overall increase because of inflation in that, but we're still below previous years. And we spent that much this year and still got a month to go.
Well, you're paying for electricity, you're also paying for water and sewer. Are the Astoria water and sewer rates going up?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Vehicle maintenance and repair is a pretty good size account. We're at 75,000. We're proposing a lot lower than previous years, but our fleet is aging as well. So it's difficult to know if the cost is going to go up for the year because of the age or down for the year because of the reduced mileage. But we think that this is a good educated guess. Charles?
Although we have our own mechanic, this would, if we need a transmission, for example, this is like they need parts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shop supplies, convenient number of things, gloves,
WD-40.
Miscellaneous little things that we need to.
all right. For total materials and services of $698,000, $698,500.
Except that we're adding 500
$699,000.
and, no, we're adding somewhere else.
Oh, we wanted to
To
add
the audit.
10,000 to the audit.
So we're adding 10,500. So that brings us to somebody else doing it.
709.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, if you're adding
709.
something, don't you have to take something away?
Well,
We'll get there.
theoretically, you don't have to necessarily take something away. You gotta find it in your resources or take something away.
Well, we have some unencumbered.
Yes, so you can take it out of
Yeah.
contingency or remaining balance.
I think we had a contingency.
Huh?
I think we had a contingency.
Well, that was the discussion we had earlier, or last time. Okay, so again, this particularly germane, but I started thinking about it when we were talking about how many buses we have and everything. What do you anticipate happening to the Seaside streetcar? It's not gonna run under SETD, correct?
There are no plans in this fiscal year to do that.
Would there be a capability for somebody to lease it from SETD and run it?
I think that would be difficult to do unless it was another transit property.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here, all the questions that immediately start coming through my head. How is it funded? And you have to have a CDL to drive it. And if you used a driver from SETD, that takes away from the local service, the other services.
And I wasn't even thinking of that.
Yeah.
I'm
and-
trying to be creative and
Right.
maybe create a stream of revenue.
You just can't charter.
Yeah.
We can't charter, do you know?
Oh, I understand. I wasn't thinking, I knew about that.
Yeah, which comes into how we rent it out without the driver, because it would have to be just the vehicle. And that's what I think you're talking about.
And if
We can't have one of our drivers.
If the vehicle's funded
But
with
it could be a
Federal
different
Transit Administration money, you can't just lease out the vehicle.
Excuse me?
If the vehicle's purchased with Federal Transit Administration money, you cannot lease out the vehicle.
Why do I think that Seaside paid a lot of money to buy that vehicle?
I don't know.
Years and years and years
Years
ago.
and
Years ago, I
Yeah.
know.
All right, well, I'm just gonna put
Look at
that
that.
back here to talk about and think about.
Okay,
So,
where to, Madam Chair?
Well, okay, so capital outlay at the bottom is all zeros. Again, if we look at the adopted budget for the current year and the year-to-date actuals, I don't know why those are still zeros. We need to have numbers in there.
so that's item 46.
Yes, item 46. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes,
I just wanted to confirm that since we added those $10,500, on item 40, total materials and services should be $709,000.
you are correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments before we leave this page?
What's the last figure name? 2005, 16.
Oh, yes, thank you.
I tabulated it. 2005-26, 720. Unless, yeah, that's just the
2 million.
2 million, did I say 2 million? 2 million. That's just adding the 10,500.
Right, because this adds your materials and services to your personnel services.
Oh, I
And
see
that's what
happened.
that number
I got
is.
it, okay.
So Rebecca, hold on, let me put something here and please tell us that number again.
Sure. 2,526,720.
Thank you.
That's the new item 47.
Just say it one more time, Sasha.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for asking the question and being so ready to answer.
It'd probably be nice to have total,
Okay. So,
I have some questions.
yes, Deanna.
Thank you. So, Paul and Kelly, I know that we have to pay, I guess it's a fee or something. I believe it's like a communications tower in Pacific County or something that we use for communications. Is that true? So that would go under telecommunications and internet or under fees and what is it? Taxes, licenses, interest and fees, is that in there or under telecommunications?
I missed what you were asking for,
So since I'm the secretary treasurer, I know that we, from time to time, pay a fee to Pacific County to have access to one of their communications towers that we use for, you know.
okay.
So I'm wondering that
Good
fee,
question.
where is it considered in the budget?
That's a good question.
Gosh, we only pay it like once a year. We're
Yes,
paying
I know.
it.
How much is
And I
it?
don't remember how much it is, but I know it's,
It's about
Considerable.
$4,500.
yeah, it's
for the year.
considerable, so.
Yeah, it is.
I'm thinking it hits our telecommunications and internet.
Yeah, me too.
I can't even remember. the
And I
exact
think we have
amount.
enough in there to cover it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so could you maybe follow up on that one?
Our fee.
Thank you. My other question is about Medicaid rides. So I know that we get reimbursed, but we've been doing it also through Tillamook Transit District, or how does that work and how do we budget for that?
That's an income, that's a resources page.
So that would just be through income, that we don't have to report it in.
They dispatch the rides, we provide the rides, and then we bill them.
We're a provider.
Okay, so then.
So that's gonna be accounts receivable
So that would be.
and as a resource.
As a resource, yes.
And then how about the water coolers that we have on the both operations in here? Where would that be under office supplies? Thank you.
And with less people, we go through less water.
Any other questions? Comments? All right, let's keep going then.
What would you like to do next?
Well, we might as well go to the next page, requirements summary. General fund.
Okay.
There's just one thing on there, no, there's a couple things.
Well, then, okay.
So you probably need to reduce the operating contingency by $10,500.
Makes it 415,000.
What line and page are we on?
Line 29 on the next page.
On page 5,
And that brings it to, what did you say?
$415,088.
Okay. So Paul, that's where that came from.
Okay.
Well, I thought from the last meeting that we weren't gonna have operation contingency this year.
I don't think we made that decision. We talked about how do you decide on a contingency versus a unappropriated ending fund balance.
Okay,
And
no, I'm good.
no, I know, and what we've got here, and we never made the total decision. We were
Okay.
starting the discussion about, do we wanna have an unappropriated ending balance? Or do we wanna put it all in contingency? My personal feeling has always been, you don't put it all in contingency. You put something in the unappropriated fund balance because you're gonna need that money for July and August of 2024. And so, we can open it to discussion. What do you prefer, having it in contingency? Jason?
Mindy has her hand raised.
Oh,
Just- it's
thank
hard
you
to
for
see.
telling me that. I can't.
I know everybody wants to get through this, but when are we breaking for lunch?
Well, it's 10 after 1. How much longer do we need? I think, as soon as we finish this page, we'll take a break.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So Does anybody have, first of all, you understand the difference between contingency and ending fund balance? One you can use, it's still a fund transfer. The other one, you're not supposed to use during your current year. And I personally think it's kind of risky not to have any ending fund balance.
You know, may I make a statement on this behind our logic here? Since these are such unusual times, I'm against putting money in a line that we can't touch it. I don't know what's gonna happen down the road. What I'm counting on is that from this point forward, there will be responsible cash management and responsible general management of the district's funds and operational costs. I expect that we will not have to touch that contingency and that we'll still have an ending balance no matter what. It's just whether we drive to it or we set it aside now. And I probably won't be the one who's here at the end of this next fiscal year. But it's so uncertain as to what the world looks like between now and then. I would hate to say that we can't touch this money because it's in unallocated,
Right.
not allocated. Now, truth be known, if we got in the pinch, we could do a supplemental budget and pull that out. But my hope and my recommendation is that we leave it as contingency so we can be as fluid as possible for this uncertain year.
So what about the consideration of, because I understand where you're coming from on all that. But again, I'm going back to the transparency, I'm going back to keeping the board informed, etc. So what about, instead of locking it, semi-locking it? And that is that the board, making the recommendation to the board that they pass a resolution that and if you leave the money in contingency, but if any money is transferred out of contingency, it must come to the board first.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
I thought that was part of it.
That seems to be a burdensome thing, though. I mean, if he's got something costs up in between board meetings, I mean, you know, you may have to pull something out of that contingency. I wouldn't want to
You
put a
know,
restriction on that.
As quickly as board meetings can be pulled together because of Zoom, I don't have a problem with that. It's a public meeting, you have to give public notice, and then you can do it on Zoom. But again, this is all about transparency and making sure everybody knows that you're taking a chunk of money out of your contingency funds.
Well, I mean, that can always be addressed at the scheduled board meeting. You don't have to call it a special board meeting. I just hate to tie the director's hands when he needs money out of the contingency and have to put together a special board meeting, but announcement and all that.
Well, as it is, the director doesn't have spending authority over $10,000 anyway.
Yeah.
So if there's an emergency situation and we can't wait, we're gonna do what's necessary to continue operations and then go to the board.
Well, but that's what we thought, and that's what didn't happen this last year, because a lot of money was used without the board being notified.
No
And on your
argument
P
there.
and L, you should have seen your contingency going down. I think Tracy had his hand up. Can you hear me, Tracy? Are you talking? You're muted, Tracy. All right, when he's ready. Pamela.
In my thoughts,
I just wanted to agree with the suggestion that we make that anything, what Paul said with contingency, anything in over 10,000. And I would support a motion in regular board session to have it stated, fully stated that we have any kind of withdrawal or any kind of situation where we would use it, then we would have a vote. And we would have it discussed at the regular board meeting. Did you guys hear all that?
Are you making that motion, Tracy?
Now it would be only a recommendation to the budget committee for they to recommend it to the board to make it a board policy. So yes, in that form, I'm making a motion.
I don't think we currently have that policy anyway.
Okay, so let's do a little discussion here. Pamela, you know, let's go to Debbie.
So we do have a policy that anything over $10,000 has to be approved by the board. I think what happened to our contingency money is it went into a general fund, not into its own bank account. And I would like to see the contingent, I know it's another bank account, but I would like to see that contingency money in its own little bank account. Nothing comes out of it without board permission.
Charles.
I'd like to know what Paul thinks is the most optimum situation for an executive director moving forward, because that's on the ground and we're on vacation or wherever. I'd like to know what Paul thinks is.
Well, I think it's time for as much transparency as we can infuse into our processes. I think that if there's an emergency situation and there's not the opportunity to call a board meeting, I think in this position, I would call the board chair. I would say, hey, this bus is on fire. I'm going to take care of it. And then it would come to the board afterwards. Other than emergency situations, I think our $10,000 policy covers it.
Okay.
Unless, you feel that. I don't know why we transfer less than $10,000 out of that account. Really.
I would hope not.
But we do have a policy on $10,000 and it can be amended to say any transfers out of contingency need board approval.
Because there's a difference between the executive director spending 10,000 or 5,000. There's a difference between that and moving money out of contingency. Because it can be moved without being spent
Well, that's true.
and then just kind of sit
Why
there
would you do that?
until somebody wants to spend it.
Well, why would you do that?
Well, really, why would you do that?
Do we want to go there?
Yeah.
That's a good point, really.
This is more for the board to discuss, not the budget.
Well, that's where the budget committee, because it's a financial matter, can make a recommendation to the board. I'm not saying we can't make that decision, the board has to make that decision. Pamela?
There was, that you can have an emergency, board meeting without public, notification. Or just give the notification.
Well, that is true.
For the 24 hours or whatever it is. And so that if you're in a dire situation, you wouldn't have to go through the longer process of public
That is true.
notification.
It's to the best of your ability.
Right.
Well, I think we could go on and on about this. I think
Yes.
maybe the committee could recommend to the board that there be some internal controls placed on the movement of funds from
The
contingency.
contingency. I like that motion. Motion that, and he can't make it. So.
I'd like to make a motion that, what would you break down?
What he says.
This is gonna be a recommendation to the board.
Yes, a recommendation to the board.
I'd like to make a motion that any funding over $10,000 moved out of the contingency fund be approved by the board.
I would move that, Madam Chairman.
He
seconded.
He seconded.
Budget committee member needs to do that.
No.
We already have that.
If we already have that policy, what I heard
Doing that.
Paul say is a little bit broader than that and a little bit narrower than that. It was that the board develop tighter controls over the contingency fund. And that leaves the board up to saying what those tighter controls are, rather than us recommending 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever. Because as I'm understanding, there's already supposed to be a rule in place at the 10,000 level.
Yes, there is.
That's correct.
As you pointed out, that's for spending.
That's for spending, that's not for moving the money. So would you accept an addition to your,
I'll just withdraw I'll withdraw the motion.
okay. So the motion is to recommend to the board that there be tighter controls placed on use of the contingency fund.
Can I do something?
Yeah.
Any money out of the contingency fund has to be approved by the board before it's taken out.
Oh, you already have that rule? Oh, you
I
want
would, yes.
Oh, I want any money that comes out of the contingency fund
Yes.
is approved
Yeah.
prior to it coming out.
I'll second
No
that.
money should be spent out of that until it's been approved.
So moved by Debbie, seconded by Paul, that any money, that prior to any money being moved out of the contingency fund must have board approval.
You're recommending this to the board.
Recommending that the
Okay.
board adopt a policy
There we go.
that says, okay, any discussion? We're hearing something, I think that's Tracy out there in the internet.
Mute himself.
Can you mute yourself, Tracy? Because we can't understand you.
Withdrawn.
Okay, so Pamela,
I think I've mentioned this before, that the contingency fund amount was not put onto our monthly budget. And is that in place? That will be in place?
that will be your part of your board discussion,
So-
that's how you're gonna maybe be able to monitor.
Because, yes, because we only saw the contingency fund once a year, which is worthless.
So,
Kelly's already working.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Okay, that passes, good deal. Paul
I
did,
did.
Who made it?
Debbie did.
Debbie did.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Okay, we have gotten to the end of this page. So
Is there
we're,
a call for a break?
yes, there is a call for a break. It is 1:25. Can we get back in motion at 2? That gives you 35 minutes for lunch. Can we do that?
Do we need all that much time? I don't, but maybe other people do. And maybe nobody does needs 35 minutes.
Yes, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay,
all right, one person does.
gotta
No,
rest the brain.
No, I.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, I-
Okay, so we are recessed until 2 o'clock.
Thank you.